is entitled Audit of HR Strategies and Impact. We are looking at how the audit that we have been looking at since Monday to today, and based on the human resource functions, can impact on the performance of an organization and the attainment of its strategies. By definition, we can say that a strategy is a game plan of achieving a competitive advantage. Or some quotas say that a strategy is a way of managing business so as to achieve its objectives. So the HR strategies that we are about to look at relate to some of the HR functions that help to achieve the corporate objectives of our organizations. This topic is divided into three, as you can see from your screen. And one of the areas that we shall discuss this evening is auditing HR strategies. Secondly is talent management audit. And finally is the financial measures and intellectual capital. When we talk about auditing HR strategies, we are looking at the various metrics of measuring how effective the strategies of a HR function are. In this subheading of HR strategies, I've subdivided into three, which I will show shortly. And then the second part of it is talent management, where we are looking at three key aspects again, which involves talent acquisition, talent retention, and talent development. And in this area, we are going to look at the best practices in auditing or measuring those three components of talent management. And then the final component of auditing HR strategy is financial measures and the intellectual capital. When we talk of financial measures, this relates to money. That as HR managers, we should help our organizations either to generate revenue or cut costs or even increase profits. So we are going to see how the HR strategies that we have mentioned are going to contribute to the financial position of our organization. On the intellectual capital, we are looking at this value of the skills, the knowledge, and the abilities of employees to an organization. So the key word there is value, because capital is about value addition. It is expected that all HR functions should add value to our organizations. And there are various types of intellectual capital that we are going to look at, starting with the human capital, and then the social capital, structural capital, and even innovation as capital. So to start with, I'm going to look at audit of HR strategies in my next slide. And these are the areas that we are going to cover in auditing these HR strategies. The first one up there is evaluation of communication. We all know that communication is the nerve center of an organization. Without communication, many things are likely to fall apart. So we are not going to look at communication in the form of the process of communication, challenges of communication or barriers, but we are going to look at how we can audit communication in a way that it helps us to achieve our objectives, both in the human resource department and the whole organization. Secondly, under the audit of these strategies, we are looking at employee engagement. From the previous modules, we had looked at various ways of looking at engagement. One is the degree to which employees are involved in organizational activities or the work that they are doing. And secondly, engagement can be looked at in terms of how well the employees are occupied so that they can contribute to the organization. And then lastly, under auditing of HR strategies, we are going to look at the quality orientation strategies. When you talk of quality orientation, it is the degree to which organizations are committed to attaining quality in all areas of function. So in HR, we are going to look at quality aspects related to either training, recruitment, performance management, and even compensation and benefits management. So as I open the next slide, the first aspect that we shall look at is evaluating communication, and then we move to employee engagement, and lastly, quality, in that order. Evaluating communication. Perhaps it may help us to understand what communication is and how it works before we look at these measurements. So they say that communication is about passing information from one person to the next through a medium. This passage of information involves transmission of messages, messages like requests, reports, complaints, or even policies and strategies. So what are the channels that we use in transmitting information? I can mention three broad ones. One is oral channels. Two is written channels. And three is nonverbal. I can give examples of the three, but we shall concentrate on the first and second method or channel of communication. The first channel I have mentioned is written communication. This involves aspects like letters, emails, reports, or minutes. These are the records that we always keep in our departments as evidence of the activities that we undertake. Secondly, there is verbal or oral communication. This may include, I mentioned three only. One is meetings, two is interviews, and three is telephone conversations. I said I will not focus on the last one, non-verbal, because this is not official communication, and it's not anything that we can refer to as HR managers for support in case anything happens. So our focus shall be on the two channels, that is written communication and oral communication. And when we evaluate this communication, we look at several things. One, the choice of the medium, is it the right one? Two, is the time taken to communicate? And three, the content of the message that we are communicating. These are the three ingredients that we should be measuring or auditing with regard to communication strategy in our organizations. So specifically, what are we measuring in communication? Let me start with the first bullet point up there. That is the response time. As HR auditors, we want to audit or evaluate the time taken for any individual or group to pass information, either from one individual to another or from one group to the next, or it could be between management and employees and vice versa. We all know that if communication is not done in time, then the message may not become relevant. Because if a message reaches the destination or the respondents late, then that message may not be useful. I may use an example of the pandemic that we all experienced since 2019 or 2020. The communications that were done by the Ministry of Health were timely, if I may say so, because we are talking about how people had to take care of themselves to reduce the spread of the virus. So they communicated messages about how we can take care of ourselves, one of which was washing of our hands, not greeting people, changing clothes, or not sharing anything. If these messages were not communicated in time, it was possible that many people could have died because they didn't know how to take care of themselves. Or the aspect of quarantine as a way of prevention. If we quarantine or communicate quarantine messages late, then many more people could be infected. Coming down to organizations, we communicate a lot of information about organizational activities. For example, if you have a meeting on Monday next week, then the communication should start yesterday or today so that you create awareness about the information. And if there is any feedback to be obtained, then it must be done on time. So basically, when we are evaluating communication, we look at the response time. Is it timely? Or how long does it take to respond? Some of our activities that we undertake in organizations are time-bound. So if it takes too long to communicate, then there are chances that we may fail to undertake those activities. Secondly, I said that the other key element of communication is the content. So we are evaluating the clarity of the content and how easy it is to understand by the recipients of the messages. So as HR auditors, we are looking at the language that we use in communication. As it were, a good communication is what is clear and is easy to understand. If the message is complicated, then understanding can also be difficult. So we are saying that the communication strategy we are using, whether it is by written means or by oral methods, should be clear. So lack of clarity can cause distortion of a message or misunderstanding. The third aspect that we evaluate in communication is the frequency of communication. As HR managers, we communicate many messages and many times. So the frequency here may vary depending on the priority of the messages and the emphasis that we want to put on the message. So how often the message is communicated is what will create understanding or prioritize the information that we are about to pass. For example, yesterday was Environmental Day, where we possibly planted trees. To remind people about tree planting, the communications could be frequent. Maybe before yesterday, the communication was maybe weekly, and then it became daily, up to the last minute that now we are going to plant trees, if that was part of our environmental initiatives. So frequent of communication is important to audit, because sometimes we lose some of this information because we don't get them frequently. Number 4, we need to evaluate feedback. Feedback must be accurate and must be timely. It is pointless to give people feedback when it's too late. For example, in performance appraisals, we require feedback on how we are performing. Without this feedback, it is difficult for any employee to know their performance in any organization. Feedback can either be negative or positive, depending on what is being communicated. Positive feedback is where you get desired results because of a communication. And negative feedback is where we don't get favorable information, maybe about how we are performing. In communication, feedback is important because, one, it helps us to know that the message go to the receiver. So if you are communicating to employees about, for example, a meeting, you should get feedback. Feedback on whether they are attending, or feedback on whether they are available for that meeting. So feedback is important in all areas of HR. Be it recruitment, we need feedback on from the employees that we have hired on how well the onboarding was, for example. In training, we need feedback to know how well the training has transformed the organization in terms of results. In performance management, we need feedback on how the employees are doing. Even in compensation, we need feedback on the level of satisfaction by the employees with regard to compensation. So we need to measure the type of feedback that we get. Is it accurate and is it timely? Then number 5 rather, is cross-departmental communications. There is a lot that we share among other departments in our organizations, especially when it comes to human resource function. We communicate a lot of messages related to performance appraisal, or rewards, or compensation, or disciplinary matters, or training. This communication should be made available to all departments depending on the need. So if we are conducting a recruitment exercise, for example, we need to communicate with the recipient or receiving department that we cannot conduct a recruitment without the presence of the receiving organization. So we need to communicate this. So interdepartmental or cross-departmental communication is important when you are thinking of this communication strategy, meaning that we need to create an internal network. This network can be downward upward or horizontal. That from this network, we are able to gather information and get feedback from our communications. The other aspect of communication is the channel. We analyze the effectiveness of the channels that are used. I have already mentioned the channels. If I may repeat, it won't break a bone. Number one is oral channels, where we said we communicate through meetings, through interviews, and even through telephone conversations. For written communication, we pass messages through letters, through emails, through short messages, SMS, and also through reports and other written documents. So the question that we always ask ourselves with regard to these tools is how effective they are. For example, if you want to pass detailed information and firsthand to the employees, the best way or the most effective method could be meetings. Meetings help us to discuss issues or pass detailed information. You cannot write a letter where a meeting could do better. Or if it is a video, for example, you want to show the state of affairs in our shop floors. Shop floors could be our offices or in the factories. A video could do better instead of probably taking a photo, because videos are more illustrative and they show motion pictures and people are able to see. And that is why we sometimes play videos if we want to show what is going on around our organizations. So the effectiveness of the tools that we are using will be measured against the information that we want to pass. So if you want to pass detailed information, use a meeting. If you want to pass a short message, use an SMS. So it is important for us to determine which channels we are using and for what function or purpose. The last aspect on communication is information flow. This is about ensuring that we get the right information from the right people. Probably it has happened to us that we write a text and by mistake we send it to the wrong people. For example, SMS is very difficult to retrieve or reverse. Probably a WhatsApp message can only be the one that you can delete or reverse. But an SMS, it's very difficult. So you can imagine when you are using an SMS to send a message to a person and you send it to the wrong person. If it was confidential information, it can be very difficult to reverse. So we are talking about the flow of communication, that we should be very careful when we are sending these messages, that the right people should receive the right message. And that is why before any communication is done, you have to identify your receivers of messages. If I may talk about the communication flow just a little bit, the communication flow starts with the sender of a message. And this sender of a message encodes the message in a language that he or she wishes. Therefore, encoding a message means that you create a message that you want to send to the people that you want to receive it. So that is one aspect of the information flow. that is encoding a message. Then the second aspect is the communication channel, which I've mentioned. These are the methods of communication. Through these methods of communication, we send this message to a receiver. And if you look at the ones highlighted, the receivers are the right people for whom the message is intended. So this right person could be an employee, a trade union official, a manager, or a customer or any other stakeholder. We must know the person or the recipient of a message. And if we want our message to be successful, we must understand who our recipients are in terms of, one, the understanding of the message, two, their level of education, so that you choose the language, and three, their characteristics in terms of health, because there are some people who have challenges in terms of hearing when you use an audio message. Others are challenged in terms of sight, so you cannot send a written message. So you must establish the right person for whom the message is intended. And the recipient there gives feedback, which completes the communication process. So what we are auditing, therefore, in the communication flow is the encoding, the choice of the medium, the receivers, and the feedback. Point of emphasis is that information should get to the right people for whom it is intended. So that ends our first element of strategy, which is communication. So if there is a question on communication, you can ask before I move to the next one, which is employee engagement. Terry, how are you? Terry, can you hear me? Okay, any question? Okay, Beatrice?
No question, just to mention, I think what you've taken us through on communication is very key. And also those aspects that you've looked at, like how long, the response time, the clarity, the frequency, and the feedback loop, etc. I think great content there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. So we can move to the next one, that is employee engagement. And as I have said, employee engagement is how employees are involved in the day-to-day activities of an organization, or how occupied they are with their jobs, in the sense that employees should be occupied from morning to evening if the job description is appropriate. If it's not appropriate, then employees might finish work at midday and they start walking around or go home. And the third kind of engagement is the satisfaction, commitment, and identity with the organization. We shall have a look at all this, especially the last one that I've mentioned, that an engaged employee is one who is happy with the organization, one who is committed, and one who has a sense of identity. If somebody does not have this, then they are disengaged. And the disengaged people are likely to perform poorly or exit the organization. So as a HR strategy, we must look for ways of engaging people. I can mention a few of them, touching on the job, work environment, and compensation. One, on the job, the design of the job can help to engage employees or disengage. How? If the job description does not contain challenging jobs or does not include opportunities for growth, or the job is routine, boring, and repetitive, it can make a person to disengage. So one of the strategies of ensuring employee engagement is the job design. Secondly, is the working environment and the conditions. The work environment should be such that it is healthy and it is safe. So if the conditions are not healthy and safe, then employees will choose their life first than staying in the organization. So we talk about employee engagement by creating a conducive work environment. Thirdly, we can engage employees through compensation. Compensation is what we pay our employees for working. And in addition to that, we can give them benefits, which are rewards. So compensation and benefits can help employees to be engaged. And as we said from previous modules, we said that an engaging or satisfying compensation is one that is internally equitable and externally competitive. By internally equitable, we mean that the jobs are fair, rather the compensation is fair, that the salary differentials are not too high that an employee can feel that they are not compensated for work done. And then you give various benefits like medical benefits or training and other factors. So there are many other ways in which we can engage employees, like promotion, career development, and also recognition. Having said that, I want us to look at how we can measure employee engagement. And the first way of doing that, in no particular order, I've just mentioned them, the way I've mentioned them on this screen, is the Net Promoter Score. Who is a promoter? A promoter is a champion or a person who supports something, or it could be a sponsor of an initiative. I want to look at promotion in the sense of a person recommending their company to other people. And for a person to do that, it means that there must be good things that are happening within that organization. Good things. Though good is relative, I may say that good things can be a competitive pay. Another good thing can be promotion. Another good thing can be recognition. Another good thing can be training. So for a person to recommend the organization to other people, they must be experiencing good things. So how do we measure the Net Promoter Score? It is by conducting surveys among our employees to see the level to which they are contented or satisfied with the working condition, the remuneration, the trainings they receive, and other factors. So we conduct surveys during the audit to measure the level to which people are satisfied and the likelihood that they will recommend the organization to other employees who could be potential employees. And then secondly, we can measure engagement through participation. How many people participate in these surveys? To a large extent, participation in a survey is majorly voluntary, unless you want to force people to take part in it. Forcing people to participate is tantamount to dictatorship. Ideally, for people to participate voluntarily, as HR managers, we should create a good relationship between ourselves and the employees who are under our care. So that good relationship will enable us to extract information from them during these surveys. So you look at the number of people participating. Why do we look at the number? It is because we want to demonstrate the level of participation of employees in organizational initiatives. If it is very low, then chances of resistance are very high, or it is an indication of dissatisfaction with what is going on. Thirdly, we look at the turnover rate. Like I mentioned yesterday, this is the rate at which employees join and leave the organization. People join and can leave shortly after, even before reporting. They receive their appointment letters, but when the onboarding begins, they discover that they are about to work with the wrong organization. So they stop. They don't come or don't report. Others can leave during induction because of what they discover is going on in the organization. This has to do with expectations. So if we don't manage expectations well, there is a possibility that employees can leave the organization very early, even before they start working. As I mentioned again yesterday, turnover is either voluntary or involuntary. As HR auditors, we want to find out the level to which employees are engaged. If they are engaged, they will remain in the organization. If they are not, they will leave. And for that reason, we are focusing on turnover, mainly with respect to voluntary resignation. So if people are resigning, it means that they disengaged, and that is why they are going to other places, either to start their own businesses or to join other organizations, or stay at home, depending on what they intend to do. And then point number 4 is the rate of absenteeism. We are aware that the time employees are absent from work is a loss in productivity. And you can calculate absenteeism in terms of the number of hours that each employee should work per year or per month, and then divide that by the number of hours or weeks that were lost. That will give you the absenteeism rate if you multiply that by 100. Absenteeism is not a good indication of engagement. It means that people are not happy. Though others may be absent for personal reasons, for example, sickness, which is admissible. But if people are intentionally absent, and sometimes they give an excuse that they are unwell, because of the requirement that they need to give evidence that they were sick, they go to the nearest doctor who will give them a sick off and a note to bring to the organization. This is not a good indication of engagement. So in our audit, we should find out why the employees are absent. Is it because of illnesses? Is it because of a toxic environment? Or is it because of the job design that they are doing? Like I have indicated, if the job is not well designed, people start disengaging. And one of the symptoms of disengagement is absenteeism. However, if an employee is absent for the number of days that you have stipulated in your policy, then disciplinary actions can be taken. But before you find you engage in a disciplinary action, it is always good practice to find out where the absentee employee is. Try calling them to find out where they are. If you can't find them, call their next of kin using the last address they gave. So in this way, we will be safe. Safe in which way? That we might write a show cause to an employee who was in hospital, perhaps involved in an accident, and then it reflects negatively on us. Or an employee had lost a loved one, and therefore they couldn't report. And here you are busy writing a show cause. So before you write a show cause, please find out where the employee is, and if possible, contact the next of kin. But in the absence of all this, absenteeism is basically a sign of disengagement. Next is internal promotion rates. As I indicated in my introduction, I said that people can be engaged, meaning that they are satisfied and happy with the organization because of availability of promotion opportunities. A high rate of internal promotion reflects higher engagement. Why? Because people remain with the organization in the hope that they will be promoted. So internal promotion are indication that employees have stayed long enough to be promoted. So promotion, again, should be based on merit. By merit, I mean people with the right skills, the right knowledge, the right experience, and also the right attitude. And in addition, they should have certain competences which may not relate to the technical jobs they are performing. These competences include teamwork, or leadership, or emotional intelligence. So promotion is considered by looking at the qualifications of a person and as well as the competencies. So as HR managers, we look at all these factors together before we promote anybody. So promotion rates can show either engagement or disengagement. And then second last is work-life balance. The environment in which we operate is fairly stressful. And because of this, people may have mental health issues. Those of us who read the newspapers and the social media, this week there has been a lot of discussion around mental health, especially in the public sector. For some reason, it means that people are not well in terms of this aspect of mental health. If the workplace is very stressful, employees can start experiencing mental health problems. So to resolve this, one of the strategies that will enable us to engage employees is to create a work-life balance, where we are creating time for the employees to attend to their personal activities or assignments, and at the same time, allow them enough time for them to work with us. So what are the strategies that you can engage in to create that work-life balance? One is to give people some days off, at least once a week, so that they can go and refresh their minds or unwind. 2, you can put people in shifts. Some working in the morning shift, others in the evening shifts. 3, you can use flexi time, where people report to work within the 3 time bands, which I may have mentioned. Just to jog our mind, the 3 time bands in flexi time are 1, reporting time, 2, core period, and 3, exit time in the evening. So as managers, we can agree with the employees to report to work within those time limits so that anybody with an issue can attend to them before reporting or in the evening when they go home. So work-life balance has been known to create a sense of engagement, that by giving employees an opportunity to balance between their private and the working life, they feel like they are valued and that they are important to the organization. And at that time they are away from the organization, they can attend to their chores or activities and come back rejuvenated after the time off. Then lastly is engagement in initiatives. And these initiatives are activities that we can create and ask employees to participate in. There are several activities that people can be invited to participate. One could be a cultural week. Probably in your organization, you have set aside a week in a year where people celebrate the diverse cultures. So employees can engage in these activities. 2, it could be like what we celebrated yesterday, Environmental Day, where employees participate in tree planting in the organization. 3, it could be a sports activity where employees are also engaged in. And lastly, it could be CSR activities where they are asked to volunteer in those activities. Or it could be visits to orphanages or home for the elderly or to hospitals. Organizations are a part of the society and therefore they should be part of that society by visiting people who are either in hospital or disadvantaged and supporting them. So employees can be engaged in these initiatives so that they identify with and develop a sense of belonging to the organization. So that is the second strategy with respect to the strategies we are talking about. If I may go back to the strategies, that was the second one, employee engagement. If somebody has a question about employee engagement, I will be happy to answer. Anybody with a question or a comment about employee engagement and how we measure this?
Maybe I have a question. Yeah, just on the employee
Yes.
net promoter score.
Yes.
Where you're looking at how likely they can recommend the company is a good place to work.
Yes.
You just run that one question.
Not necessarily.
Yes.
Continue. Maybe you finish your question before I answer.
No, I just wanted to ask if I was just thinking if someone would just ask a question to all employees and you'll get a yes or a no. And who says yes, who says no, would that give you a right score, really?
Yes, you are right. Asking that one question cannot give you enough information to make a recommendation about the conditions in the organization. The best practice is that when you are conducting employee survey, you touch on most of the aspects related to HR. It can be recruitment, training, performance management, and reward and benefits. Most people conduct salary surveys where you can ask such a question, whether they can recommend the organization to others. Or when you are doing a benchmarking with other organizations. So there are very many things that you could be benchmarking. And the benchmarking can be done internally or externally. So starting with internal benchmarking, where you ask people several questions related to different functions, you can ask, could you recommend any of your friends or relatives to join this organization? In that way, you will get more information than asking just one question on this promoter score index. And if you ask just one question, I'm not sure how many questions you will ask in the organization for you to get all the information that you need. You could be asking a question every day, because as a survey can be done once, we prefer that you include all the functions together in the survey, and then you can ask the employees whether they can recommend or not recommend the organization to other people. So that is my take. Please don't ask one question at a time unless it is the key or the most important aspect of your organization. Beatrice, have I answered your question?
Yes, you have. I'm just thinking, we normally do employee surveys, and most of the time we are looking at the engagement index. And we look at all those aspects of HR. I'm just trying to see the difference between the net promoter score and the other surveys that we do. Like there's an organization we do twice a year. And all the time you get it, because you ask different questions, but relating to those areas of HR. I find it okay because you get different results any other time. And maybe sometimes and all that. But I'm trying to get a distinction between those surveys we do and the rates we get between them and the net score.
Okay, may I respond to that?
Yes.
Okay, in your employee surveys on engagement, you are asking their opinions and their level of satisfaction with the various functions related to HR. They are giving you,
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
So
yes,
they are
including this question, it comes. Even this question, we sometimes have it. How likely are you to recommend the company to others? Yes.
So at the end of the questionnaire, if you have one that you have used before, you could now ask, could you recommend this organization to other people? You can ask a person to recommend based on a number of things which are involved in your survey. So this survey enables us to collect information about what we do in all the functions. And then after that, we can ask whether they can recommend. A person can only recommend if they are happy with all the functions, but they cannot recommend if they are not happy. So the starting point is what they think and their level of satisfaction with the various aspects of HR. And then we can ask them if they can recommend the organization to others. It's about their experience. I remember yesterday and the other day I said that organizations are not selling a product, they are selling an experience. So what is the experience of employees that can make them recommend this company to others? So it is upon us to ensure that whatever we do from recruitment, training, appraisals, and others are right, so that the employees can recommend. So recommendation is what the employees can do in order to invite others to come on board. Okay, Beatrice, you have any other question?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we move to the next part. After employee engagement is the quality orientation strategies. I said before that quality orientation has to do with the focus of an organization on quality. If quality are standards in our products and services which satisfy customer needs, then we should be concerned about it, because we have these two sets of customers. One, internal customers, and two, external customers. The internal customers must get the quality of services that we get firsthand, even before we go to the external customers. So a quality-oriented department like ours must ensure that the services that we offer are of high quality. For those of us who are in manufacturing sector, quality can be defined in terms of 5 aspects. Quality can be defined in terms of 5 aspects. One is the functionality, meaning that is the product working. 2 is about aesthetics, meaning that is the product appealing. 3 is durability. Is the product long-lasting? 4, reliability. Is the product producing the same result each time it is used? And the number last, performance. Is the product producing results? Coming down to HR, product quality will relate to all those, but in a different way. For example, the services that we offer as HR, and we look at all the HR functions like recruitment, training, and others. So in terms of quality, we say that are those functions working? Are they functional? So if it's training, is it functional? If it's recruitment, yes.
I seem not to see anything. I don't know if it's only me.
From my end, I can see myself.
We only see
maybe I can. The heading, eh? I've not given anything, eh?
No.
I was just explaining. I'll give something here, eh?
Okay. Oh, thank you.
I was just explaining the element of quality, eh?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for that. Before because whatever I have there is what I am measuring in quality. So I want to bring us to speed what quality is, so that when we are auditing, we know exactly what we are looking for. I guess that is clear now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was talking about the functionality of our services as a pointer of quality. So when we talk about performance, in terms of the HR functions, we ask ourselves, are we producing the results? Because performance is about results. Then reliability, that whatever we do is consistent. If it's training, it is consistent. With performance appraisal, there is consistency. If it is the rewards that we give people, consistency. Or if it is benefits, consistency. So consistency is a measure of quality that we are talking about. In the interest of time, I can move to the measurements of quality. Defect rate. This is especially in the production industry, where we are producing goods. Defects are damages that characterize goods either at the point of production or during delivery, which means that the defects violate the standards of quality, that it does not meet the specifications. So as we focus on orientation, rather quality, because orientation is the focus on quality, we look at the defects of the goods that we provide. Somebody could ask, can there be a defect in the services that we provide? The answer is yes. That you provide wrong information, that is a defect. Or you provide late information, that is a defect. Or you misadvise somebody, that is a defect. If we go back to communication, we said that the timeliness of the communication can also be measured. So if the services are not provided on time, that is a defect, which need to be corrected. So we look at defects in both the goods and services. But generally, people call products or interchange products and goods, and the services stand alone. So I've chosen product there instead of goods. Secondly, another focus in terms of quality is the number of complaints that we get from customers, both internal and external. That when customers complain, it's a sign that the products did not satisfy their needs. Either the product was damaged on arrival, or had defects, or is not working, or has developed some mechanical problem. And we look at these complaints as a point of dissatisfaction with what we offer in terms of quality. If you look at number 1 and 2, they are related, because defective products can be returned. And the customers complain about those defective products. So the the rate of returns, where customers are returning these products, or the number of complaints, speak to our quality of services or goods. Thirdly is internal quality audits. I want to believe that our organizations have internal audit departments. This department is very important because they conduct regular health checks with respect to the various functions, such as finance, human resource, operations, production, and others. This is very important, again, for purposes of continual, the keyword there is continual improvement. That with this internal audit, we are able to identify weaknesses in our system, which should be corrected in time. So as an auditor, you look at the regularity of the checks and whether there is compliance with the quality standards that we have set for ourselves. For example, those of us working in the banking industry, the standard is that you cannot serve a customer for more than 7 minutes. Why? Because soon you'll see a queue developing. 3, customers will start complaining that it is taking too long to get services. And 4, other customers might start thinking that the person serving is incompetent. So if you cannot serve a customer within 7 minutes, you may do 2 things. 1, refer that person. Or 2, ask them to wait as you sort them out. And the waiting means that you may have to consult so that you can clear with the customer. Because dealing with one customer for a long time is an indication of a downtime, that there is no activity going there except serving one customer. And the customers can complain, as we have mentioned in bullet 2. So internal quality audits will give us an indication of where we have weaknesses in terms of our processes, our systems, and our policies. And when we identify this in time, we are able to take corrective measures. And therefore, we become quality-oriented people when these audits are done and the corrective actions are taken. The other aspect of quality is training on quality standards. Yesterday, I mentioned training, and I think one of us asked a question about training large numbers of people and training individuals. And I gave the example of ISO certifications. There is a certification on quality. I guess some of us are aware of it. So if we are a quality certified, then we should make efforts to ensure that we maintain the quality standards for which we were certified. So through quality training, we are able to identify those areas that are not up to standard and improve them. So it is important to train employees on quality standards so they understand what is expected of them. For example, if a standard has to do with time, that a customer can be served within 3 minutes, the employee should be trained on time management, that a customer is served within 3 minutes. Or if it's a quality standard where we are communicating with our customers on a regular basis, maybe weekly, we train our employees on weekly communications. And that becomes a quality standard. And there are many other standards that we have for ourselves, which we can train people on when there is a need. The other aspect of quality measurement is the scorecards. This is related to the suppliers of the services that we sometimes outsource. Be it security that we outsource, or technical, like computer repairs, or other services like consultancy. They must adhere to our quality standards, so that when we are signing the contract with these suppliers, they know our expectations and specifications. Meaning that before we sign a contract with any service provider, we must vet them. Vetting them means that you evaluate their past performance with other clients, and if possible, they provide a sample, especially those suppliers providing tangible goods. It is important to ensure that there is quality at all levels, starting from the gate, that is the security people that are manning those gates. One of the quality standards that we could expect to get from the people at the gate is courtesy, that the people should courteously welcome visitors to the organization. But most importantly, they must ensure that anybody accessing the gates should be checked, because that is why they are at the gate, to check whether there are not any harmful substances that can be brought into the organization, or even weapons. We must ensure that our organizations are safe. So if you find that the people at the gate are not checking the people entering by way of risking, then that is a lapse. That's not what we hired them to do. So we expect that all the service providers or suppliers of goods must meet our standards. So apart from courtesy, it can also mean providing direction. Probably there is a visitor at the gate who has never visited, and they want the direction to the offices. The security officers should be able to direct them to the right offices. So that is part of the quality checks that we look at. And then lastly is the cost of quality. How much does it cost to ensure that we have quality? Ensuring that there is quality means that we buy security gadgets, for example, like security cameras, or we buy quality computers, because we don't want our computers to hang when we are serving a customer, or we buy quality writing materials. All these require money. So when you measure the cost of maintaining quality vis-a-vis the results, you should be able to tell whether those quality standards are paying dividends. So if you inject quality into your system, you expect quality output. And that takes us back even to some of the languages that we use in computing, that when you bring in garbage, you produce garbage. So quality is very key, because if we bring in quality, then we expect that we can give out quality. So that is the end of the first part of strategy audit, which I promised to look at. And if there is anybody who has a question with regard to the three aspects of strategy, you can ask. And those are the ones that we have covered: evaluating communication, the accuracy, clarity, and timeliness, engagement, strategies to retain people, and quality strategies to ensure that our customers are happy all the time. Any question in relation to the three? Particularly the last one, quality orientation strategies, because that is what we have just finished looking at. Kennedy Oruko, how are you, sir? If you are hearing me, please ask a question or make your comment. Yes, go on. Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, looks like I've lost Kennedy. Zipporah, if you are there, if you can ask a question or make a comment.
Good evening,
Good evening to you, Zipporah.
Sorry, I joined in a bit late. You already began. I got it at the last bit. Maybe I can comment as we progress.
Okay, thank you. Beatrice, any question or comment?
No question, but thank you for so far, so good.
Thank you. So we move on to the second part of our presentation, and that is talent management. I believe many of us are familiar with the image I've projected there. What does it remind us of? Beatrice, have you interacted with this image before or with this animal?
Tom and Jerry.
Yes. Yes, Tom and Jerry. Cartoon Network is one of my favorite channels that I watch. And I usually marvel at the genius that went into the production of this Cartoon Network, particularly Tom and Jerry. It is a great way of entertainment, and we laugh about these animals or laugh at them, but it's a reflection of our reality. When I talk of the genius that went into this, it's about the talent that somebody had to develop such a kind of product. We want talented people in our organizations. Talented people can produce results that we desire. Talented people who can innovate, like the innovation that went into the production of Tom and Jerry. And talent of people that can make life fun, make us happy. So speaking of talent, there are three aspects that we are going to look at. One is talent acquisition, two, talent retention, and three, talent development. As I will mention shortly, talent acquisition is about recruiting people who have the right mix of skills, knowledge, and experience. Then talent retention is keeping the people with those qualities. And the talent development is improving the skills and the knowledge of people because of changes in the environment or the need to ensure that people are relevant, because we know that certain skills become obsolete, they have a shelf life. We start with the first one, that is talent acquisition. And as I've just mentioned, talent acquisition is about hiring people. The hiring process starts at the time you identify a need. And a need arises when a person has retired, a person has resigned, a person has been dismissed, a person has died, or there is new business. So we engage in a process of recruitment after establishing a need. Then from establishing a need, we develop job descriptions, and we also advertise. After advertisement, we sift the applications and shortlist. That is screening, and then select. And the process goes up to onboarding. Those are the areas that we measure in talent acquisition. Somebody to mute their mic. Okay, so talent acquisition, these are the metrics that we use to measure the success or failure of this process. The first one there is the time to hire. Here we look at the number of days or even weeks that it takes to fill a vacant position. Again, depending on the industry in which we belong, whether public or private, then the number of days will vary. For some organizations, filling a junior position takes around 20 to 30 days. For others, it takes 45 to 50. Others 70 to 90. And yet others more than 3 months, which means it's 120 to even 180 days, which is basically 6 months. Taking a long time is not healthy for an organization. Why? Because it reflects negatively on this organization, because you are taking too long to hire a person, especially those that you have contacted to attend an interview. 2, it will affect our levels of productivity and even revenue, because there is a vacant position that has not been filled. So with that gap, we can lose money or lose revenue, or have declining profits because somebody has not been hired. The other negative effect of taking too long is that the potential candidates might move to other organizations, and probably these were the game changers if they were to be brought to the organization. So it is important, as we audit this process, to look at the number of days that we are taking. If it takes you 45 days to hire, you are doing very well. If it takes you 70 days, you are doing fairly. If you take more than 90 days, you are doing poorly. But again, I have put a disclaimer that it depends on the industry that you are in. In public sector, for example, there is a mandatory requirement of 21 days advertisement. And that is a requirement, a legal requirement. By the time you shortlist people, depending on the number of people who have applied, probably 50,000 people apply for one position. And this is a reality today. Why? Because of the high levels of unemployment. Even those who don't qualify want to try their luck. So you have a very huge number of applicants. You may have that big number because of several reasons. Yes, Kennedy, you have a question or something? Okay, I kindly request that you mute your mic. I was saying that there are several reasons why it might take you long to shortlist people. One is the content of your job description, which was advertised. If the advertisement is such that everybody can qualify, then you will have large numbers of applicants, and that will take you even months to finish shortlisting. And by the time you interview, it takes even more days. So the job design should be in a way that those who don't qualify do what we call deselection. They deselect themselves from the process because they don't qualify, meaning the criteria for selection must be high enough for people to deselect themselves. Two, we are looking at the cost per hire. How much does it take for you to hire a person in terms of finances? The way of calculating this is the total cost over the total number of positions that were filled. That will give you the total cost or the average cost per hire. If the average cost is very high, then it will affect your end product. That's why I spend so much in hiring, and yet that person is not qualified. The cost of hiring must be lower than the cost, the cost of the results than that the person is producing. Ideally, this is a standard that is used in the industry, that one position should not cost more than $400 to $1,000 in terms of advertisement. So the total cost includes all the areas like advertisement, screening the applications, interviewing, and the final induction and placement. The third one is candidate quality. This is what the candidates who are hired are producing when they are placed on the job. And how do we measure what they are producing? It's through performance reviews. So what will tell us that a person is of high quality as a result of a hire? One, they are producing the desired results, or they are meeting targets. That will show that there was quality. Two, the retention rate will be high. That is the quality of hire. Three, engagement. They will be highly engaged if the quality of hiring was good. And three, there will be few complaints about them. That is quality of hire. So when you audit this talent acquisition, you look at what the hired people are doing and whether they are meeting the expected standards. Number four is the acceptance rate of job offers. It is not a guarantee that when a person has been given an appointment letter, they are going to accept the job. Usually an appointment letter is given to a newly hired employee so that they can prepare themselves to come and join the organization. So the offer letter contains the reporting date. However, like we said yesterday, you can start onboarding before they come to the organization. So as in some organizations, there is a practice that a job offer is given prior to job acceptance. So in a letter of offer, there is no form of acceptance. So when they are being inducted or onboarded, that is when they are required to fill that acceptance form. If that works for us, that is okay, but ideally, a job offer letter should contain an acceptance form so that you know from the onset whether this person has accepted or not. Those who don't accept will give you an opportunity to go to the second person in the interviews. And if the second does not accept, you can move to the third. Some go up to the fourth candidate, but I would think that the fourth candidate may not be the best for you. And when you look at the quality index, you may find that this person might not perform to expectations. So when the first, second, and third have declined the offer, it is usually advisable that you re-advertise so that you can get better candidates and in a competitive way. But if it works for you, because of the cost aspect, that is still acceptable. The other aspect of talent acquisition is the method or the channel of sourcing. I said yesterday that there are many sources of candidates. One is institutional learning, two, the open job market, three, walk-ins, those people who walk into the organization prospecting for jobs. So how do we ensure that these people are attracted to the organization? Those are the sourcing channels. One is an advertisement. So advertisement can be effective or not. Sometimes we ask our candidates how they got to know about the vacancy. They can say through a friend or through an advertisement. If the majority of candidates say that they saw the advertisement, then it means that that advertisement was successful. Secondly, you can use online sources like websites. You can advertise jobs on company websites, which can help to attract a large base of candidates. Other sources include social media. Today, social media has become a good source or channel of employee advertisements. It can be media like Telegram. And in Telegram, this is more of a professional network or social media. And you can easily get potential candidates because of the networks that people have in Telegram. Other social media might include WhatsApp or Twitter or Facebook. So when you are auditing, you look at which of those channels enable you to get not only the numbers, but the quality of applicants. So you audit the numbers that were attracted through the various channels and the quality of the applications. The other aspect of talent acquisition is diversity hiring. That the question we are asking ourselves here is whether the channel that we used attracted a number of people from different backgrounds, such as age, education, gender, and ethnic backgrounds. And even in our selection methods, when we finally pick the people that we want, this diversity should be reflected. Otherwise, in terms of compliance, it might be a risk because we are not compliant with the Employment Act when it comes to hiring people from different backgrounds. And even in our policies, I'm sure we have that clause saying that you are equal opportunity employers. And that should be shown in talent acquisition. It is not possible to have only women who are talented. We should have a mix. And then lastly is the recruitment funnel conversion rate. A funnel is like a tool that we use to pour oil or water or milk into a container. So that recruitment funnel means that we attract people from a large market, like a funnel, and then we have to screen them. And lastly, we get the right person at the end of the process. So in terms of conversion rates, how do the tools that we use, for example, interviews, help us to get the right people? It's like a filter. How does it help us to get the right person that we give a job offer? And if an interview does not give us the right person, then we could look for alternatives to interviews, such as referrals. But even after referrals, some organizations use interviews together with the referrals. So that is the first aspect on talent management, which is talent acquisition. And again, I want to open it to us for any questions that you may have in terms of talent acquisition. Anybody with a question that we can take very quickly before we move on to the next part? Okay, apparently there is nobody with a question, but I hope that at the end of this session, we will have some questions or clarifications that you may want to have. So with your permission, I'll go to bullet 2, that is talent retention, under talent management, which is our second component of our strategy audit. So in talent retention, we are looking at the people that we hired or acquired, that is talent acquisition. How many have we retained? We all know that it is expensive to bring people on board, and it's also expensive to lose them. If we get the right people, either from the job market or from within, we should make efforts to retain them, because turnover is a cost. So what are these strategies that we can use to retain people before we go to the metrics? One is training and development. 2 is promotion. 3 is recognition. 4 is conducive work environment. 5, participation and involvement. And 6, compensation. But those are not the only ones. There are many. I've just mentioned a few. So retention metrics will focus on those. For example, it can focus on this. Employee turnover rate, which measures the percentage of employees who are leaving. So how do we measure the turnover rate? We measure this using a formula where you look at the number of people who have left over a period of time over the average number of people who are there in the organization. You multiply that by 100. You will get a percentage. For example, you may have 10 people who have left in an organization. 10 people have left, that's turnover. You divide that by the average number of people in the organization. That is the number of people at the beginning of the year and the number of people at the end of a year. So we are looking at 10 people who have left within this year. So we look at the number of people who are there in January and the number of people who are there now, you divide by 2 and then multiply 10 over that number by 100. So that will give you a turnover rate. If the turnover rate is very high, then you have every reason to worry. Why? Because you are losing talent. Because the subject we are discussing in number 2 is talent management. And here we are talking about talent retention. So if talent is leaving the organization, then we should be worried and look for ways of retaining them. Secondly is voluntary and involuntary turnover. Voluntary turnover can be 3 in number. 1, early retirement. 2, resignation. And 3, voluntary layoff. That is voluntary. Involuntary turnover is where an employee is forced to leave the organization against their will. And what are the examples? 1, dismissal. 2, redundancy or what they call retrenchment. And 3, retirement. Once you reach the mandatory age of 60, you retire. So you look at voluntary versus involuntary. How do they compare? People who live by choice against those who are terminated. Both of them are have negative consequences, but we could be worried if there are so many people who are living voluntarily compared to those who live by termination. Because voluntary termination means that there are many bad things that are happening in the organization, and that is where they are living. But for involuntary, like dismissal, it's like an employee has committed an offense, and therefore action has to be taken. So the worry could be on the voluntary part and much less on the involuntary area. The other aspect of retention is the number of people are remaining, especially those new ones. That is the new hire retention rate. It's expected that when we hire people, they will stay in an organization for a long time. However, if they leave very early, maybe 1 day, 2 days, or 1 year after being hired, that is a bad indication of what is happening in the organization. We should endeavor to retain these people. As I've indicated there, a good retention rate could be 6 to 1 year for new hires. We want to put in place strategies to ensure that these new hires stay with the organization. The retention rate, percentage of new employees who stay in the organization. If they stay for longer, then our retention strategy is good or effective. And if they stay for less than a year, our retention strategies are poor. So we should interrogate what strategies we put in place, and perhaps those are the ones that are responsible for the early exits. And then we need to collect information about people who are exiting by conducting exit interviews. This is what we usually do, even in public sector. Whether you are leaving voluntarily or involuntarily, there is an exit interview, probably except for disciplinary cases. It should be in our policy to conduct exit interviews because they give us insights on why these employees are leaving. And from the information, we can develop retention strategies, because the heading up there is retention. There are other measures of retention, that is conducting retention surveys or satisfaction surveys. Beatrice had mentioned that they conduct employee satisfaction surveys on a variety of things, such as promotion, compensation, working conditions, or even overall management of the organization. These surveys will give us an indication of whether employees are engaged or not. When we were talking about employee engagement, in the first part of this presentation, we said that engagement has to do with the level people identify with and are happy in the organization. So these surveys will give you as an indication of whether you are successful or not with your strategies. So as HR auditors, we find out what is this that can make people happy or unhappy. Unhappy people leave. Happy people stay. And when they stay, that means that we have retained them. Retention. And then the other second last aspect is the rate of mobility. That is the movement of people in and out of the organization. Especially when people move within the organization is through promotion. And earlier on, we mentioned the aspect of promotion rate with respect to engagement. So internal mobility refers to the percentage of employees who are promoted. I'm not saying that everybody should be promoted as fast as possible. No. What I'm saying is, if there are many people who have been promoted, it means that they have stayed in the organization long enough. And probably there is a career and a succession plan in place. We develop career and succession plans because we want to retain our employees. So internal mobility is another way of measuring whether we retain the people who can succeed others. And lastly, stay interviews. Somebody could ask, what is the difference between exit and stay interviews? In stay interviews, we get information about the current employees who are staying in the organization. We ask them what makes them stay. And going by what we said earlier on about the promoter index, these are the people who are likely to say good things about the organization. Because they have stayed, it means that they have some good news or stories to tell about the organization. So we ask them why they stay, And if there are any weaknesses in the organization, we improve them, such as rewards, promotion, and training. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the part on retention of employees or retention of talents. Before we go to the third and the last component of our presentation this evening, I wish to invite again questions on talent retention, and particularly the measurements that we use in retaining talent. Question or comment? Kanenje, if you are there, if you can ask a question, I'll be happy. Lillian?
No, madam, everything is okay.
Oh, this is Kanenje.
They are moving on well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. In fact, your speed,
my speed is high.
It's good. It accommodates even the slow learners.
Thank you very much.
If any.
I will assume there are no slow learners here.
Yeah, I've said that is why I'm putting a disclaimer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lillian, if you are there, you can ask a question. Okay, looks like we don't have Lillian there. I want us to move on to the next part, which is the last part of our presentation today, the third part. And that is talent development metrics. That is under talent development. Because in talent management, we said three things. One, talent acquisition. Two, talent retention. And three, talent development. Those are the three components that we are auditing. Talent development, if I may explain it, is the enhancement of skills, knowledge, and the competencies of employees so that, one, they become more productive. Two, they stay in the organization, that is, we retain them. Three, we prepare them for promotion. And four, we prepare succession plans. So talent development is enhancement of skills, knowledge, and competencies. So how do we enhance this? Or how do we make people's skills and knowledge grow or expand them? One, we can develop people through training. Two, we can develop people through delegation. Three, we can develop people through mentorship and coaching. And last, we can develop people through special assignments. So those are the areas that we should be measuring when we are auditing talent management. So we start with the first one there, that is training participation rate. Again, I remember yesterday we said that training is one of the systems of the organization. And the people must participate in this process. At what point do they participate in training and development? One of the stages is at the identification of training needs. So when you want to identify the training need of any employee, we give them an opportunity to participate. Either we give them forms to fill and let us know what areas they are weak in, which require training, or two, we interview them to give us their story about their performance gaps, or three, we interview their immediate supervisors. Either way, if we want these employees to accept a training initiative, we allow them to participate in training needs analysis. Another area or level of participation in training is when we are evaluating the effectiveness of the training. Evaluating training effectiveness comes at the end, that the training has been conducted and the people have come back from the training center to the organization. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, you look at 4 areas. 1, transfer of learning. 2, results. 3, behaviors. And 4, reactions. So you ask them, especially on the part of reactions, what the training was like, the relevance of the training, whether they liked the training, and whether the training environment was conducive. That is how they participate in training, especially at the end. So as a HR auditor, you look at whether the employees have been involved in 1, determining their own training needs, and 2, whether the training is producing results according to them. Secondly, we look at learning and development, where we are looking at the investment. This investment is usually in the form of a budget where we spend money to train and develop people. What we audit is whether this training has produced results. Results could be 1, improved service delivery. 2, increased revenue. And 3, satisfied customers. So if these are the results, then we can say that the training has paid dividends, that it has helped the organization to achieve its objectives. So HR auditors look at the return on investment from developing their talent. Number 3, we look at the skills gap analysis, where we are assessing on a regular basis the skills of our employees who are currently on the payroll. Why should there be regular assessment? It is because of the need for continual improvement. Because if we take a long time to identify gaps, then that will affect employee performance. So the earlier we arrest a problem, the better for us, because at the end of it all, we must be responsible for the performance of the HR function. Are we supporting the organization to achieve its objectives? And that's precisely the reason why we do an audit of all these functions, including talent development. So you look at the gaps and then future requirements. Yesterday, we looked at manpower planning as one of the HR systems or functions. And we said that we need to project into the future, that is forecasting, in regard to the skills and the knowledge that we will need. So we prepare people today for future roles by way of training or talent development. The other aspect we measure in talent development is the promotion rate. I don't think that I need to overemphasize that. The other one is the completion rate, completion of training. Why do we have to think of completion rate? One, because we have said we have invested in these people. There is money that we are spending. So if a training is not completed, that amounts to a wasted resource. You have wasted the employee and you have wasted money because there is an incomplete training. And if the rates are very high, as HR managers, we need to be worried that we have identified training needs and yet people don't complete the training. That means the performance gap will continue to exist because the training is incomplete. What therefore do we need to do as HR managers? One main thing, that is continuous monitoring of the training initiatives so that we identify people who are not completing their courses and establish the reason. For those of us who are sponsored by organizations to pursue certain courses, if you don't complete a course, the organization will not reimburse the resources that you have spent. And that is why some organizations require you to pay for yourself first, and then they pay you later. So if you don't complete, it means it's you who has lost your money. But from an organizational perspective, we want to ensure that everybody who is approved to go for a training, they complete the training because there is a performance gap that the training will bridge. Second last is the return on investment from training. How much are we getting after the training? I've given several aspects there. One, productivity, the amount of time they take to produce the results over time. That is the results they produce over time. That's productivity. Then their performance, what results are they producing? And engagement, whether they are happy and satisfied with the training and they are likely to stay in the organization because that's part of retention. The last aspect of audit in employee development or talent development is career pathing. That is the number of people who successfully move through defined career paths. I may have mentioned before that people should grow within their department or their areas of specialization. And as HR managers, we develop career paths in each of the functions that people specialize in, whether it's marketing, finance, or HR. If it's in HR, the career path will start from a HR officer, a junior HR officer at entry level, then go to senior HR officer, then go to HR manager, go to HR director, up to HR general manager. If this is a career path, it is part of talent development, that you don't just train people, you also ensure that they grow in their careers. If the success rate is very high, then we should congratulate ourselves that we are doing a good job in talent development. But if the success rate is low, then it means that there are several gaps in our talent development, particularly in career. One, probably there is no career guidance and counseling. That's why it is failing. Managers and guidelines on where employees who have been trained can develop their careers in. So basically, those are the many ways in which you can develop talent development. So please ask any questions before we move to the third and the last component of our training today. Any question or comment that you have? We have around 25 minutes to go before we close. If I may point out, Konyi, if you have any question.
Thank you, sir. I do not have any questions. So far, the session is flowing well for me.
Thank you. Terry, if you are there. Okay, Lillian.
No, I'm following Mwalimu. Asante. No questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Lillian. Now we move to the last part, that is part 3 of our presentation. Allow me to exit the slide mode so that we can see what is happening there on number 3. I can reduce the font size so that we can see the whole of it. There we are. Can you still see it? Yes, we are now on the final part of auditing strategy and impact. So the final part there is financial measures and intellectual capital. As I indicated from my introduction, financial measures have to do with several things. 1, the revenue that people generate. 2, the profits that they make. And 3, the cost implications of what we do as HR managers. So 3 key financial aspects: 1, revenue; 2, profits; and 3, cost. These are the things that we are going to measure through all the functions. If it's training, how much does it cost? How much does it bring in revenue? How much profit? If it is recruitment, how are the new people performing? Are they bringing in checks? Or how much did we spend in recruiting these people? If it is performance management, how much money are they bringing in? Excuse me. And on the intellectual capital, we are looking at the skills, the knowledge, the experiences, the talents, and the abilities of people that they bring on board. Under intellectual capital, we can break it down to 1, human capital; 2, social capital; 3, emotional capital; 4, structural capital; and 5 is academic capital. By capital, we mean the value that people bring in through their skills and their knowledge. Before I project what I have there, intellectual capital, for example, human capital, is the skills, the soft skills that people have, their experiences and knowledge. What value are these? People with skills and knowledge should bring value. And what value is this? I can mention 2. 1, innovative ideas or products. So if we use our intellectual capital well, people can be innovative. Secondly, people can use their skills and knowledge in human capital to make money for the organization and for themselves. So if people can make money for the organization, then they are using their human capital well. So these are the areas we are going to look at in this final part. One is how HR impact financial outcomes, and I've mentioned the three outcomes: revenues, profits, and cost. And secondly, intellectual capital as an asset. And when you say that something is an asset, like we say HR is the most important asset, it means that they bring value. So what value do we gain from the intellectual capital that we have in our organizations? Let me start with the first one, the impact on financial outcomes. How does HR impact the financial outcome? If you look at the first point, it relates to productivity and performance. And I have indicated that HR drives productivity, increased revenues, and profitability. It's for this reason that we develop certain targets related to this financial aspect during performance contracting or performance appraisal. Those of us who are in profit-making organizations, for example, there are people that you hire to go out there and bring customers. These are the people you call agents, or people who are working on commission, marketing agents. We give them targets that for this month, we want you to bring 10 million shillings by talking to the customers and selling products. So if 10 million shillings is your revenue, then you measure that performance against the target. Have they achieved their targets? If the answer is yes, then those people have met expectations and they can get a favorable rating. If the answer is no, then they have failed and the remedial measures can be taken. For profitability, we are looking at how much is remaining after doing all the expenses. And it is the profits that count for most organizations, not revenue. Revenue is what we collect, profit is what remains after we have invested or spent. So whatever profits we make should arise from our people, human resources. It is people who sell products at a price, and when we look at our investments, we subtract the balance, we get a profit. So these profits are generated by employees. And it's good for the organization because when you look at the finances or the bottom line, we are looking at what is the balance sheet of the organization. And if it's a favorable balance sheet, then we should celebrate ourselves through a bonus at the end of a year or half a year, depending on when you give them. Secondly is the cost aspect. How much are we spending through talent acquisition and retention of employees? And I have indicated there, effective talent hiring and retention reduces cost of turnover. What are the costs associated with turnover? One is loss of productivity, because once a person has left, his position or her position remains vacant, and therefore there is no productivity. Even if you enlarge the jobs of others by dividing the roles, the performance might not be as high. Two, another cost is the replacement of the new employees. Advertisement and other forms of bringing employees to the organization is a cost. Particularly advertisements. We advertise in the mainstream media. It costs a lot. The last time I checked, any full-page advertisement in a newspaper like Nation will cost you around 900,000. That is very expensive for organization. And that's why we said earlier on that we must calculate the cost per hire. How much is it costing to hire one person? Even turnover leads us to that when people leave the organization, there are costs associated with the replacement, either in terms of advertisement or screening the applications or the selection panel, which may have to be paid some allowances. So if it is efficient, then it can reduce the turnover and savings. Savings when people are the other part or aspect of is when somebody is there's a cost. Two things. One, they may have to be recovered. Two, the cost of productivity. That if it was a salesperson and he or she is absent from work, money is lost on that day. And that's a financial outcome which is negative to the organization. And lastly, absenteeism causes operational disruptions because work may have to stop on that day or a week when they are away, and that is attributed to absenteeism. And again, as I said yesterday, you don't allow people to be absent for long. You take disciplinary actions. But again, be careful not to cause a situation which is called presentism as opposed to absenteeism. Presentism is a situation where people appear to be working physically and they are present, but emotionally, mentally, and psychologically, they are absent. So they have disengaged. So there are limits in which we can go when we are taking disciplinary actions for people who are absent maybe for one day. I am aware that the Employment Act does not specify the exact number of days an employee can be absent. That is left to our policies. So our policy should indicate how long can a person be absent for disciplinary actions to be taken. The other aspect on financial outcome is the level of labor utilization. How much are we utilizing the people that we have? Optimal utilization. That there is nobody who is working and has very few tasks to perform on an average day. If that happens, then there are several things that are likely to happen. One, somebody is going to earn money for working very little. Or two, somebody is likely to be overworked because they have a lot of assignments to do. The other aspect is employee engagement, which is related to revenue growth. Engaged employees, as I've indicated, they perform better. Why? Because they are satisfied with their job, they are committed, and they identify with the organization. Such people are likely to be better performers. And the people who perform better, they generate revenues and profits. So profits will grow from engaged employees. So it's our role as HR managers to find out whether the employees are engaged, so that they can produce the financial resources that we endeavor to achieve. There are other financial aspects related to employees, functions like training and elsewhere that we have already mentioned, and that is controlling compensation and benefits. There is no organization in the world that has all the money to give employees far and above the market rates. We must control this so that we live within our means. And that is why even in our government, there are austerity measures to ensure that we don't spend more than what we have. The other aspect is talent development, which I have already mentioned, that talent development promotes talent growth, innovation. Innovative people develop new ideas which can enable organizations to cut costs or develop new products which can be sold for a profit or at a profit. The other aspect is risk management and compliance. We mentioned earlier on in our presentation, I think on Monday, there are these types of compliance, which we said is legal compliance. So compliance has to do with ensuring that we adhere to the quality standards and the legal requirements or regulations. What are the costs associated with non-compliance? One is that we can lose a market for our products if they are compromised. Two, we can face sanctions, especially from compliance institutions, when we don't meet the standards. And three, there are costs legal associated with the legal lawsuits in our courts. The courts can fine us if we don't comply with certain regulations. And then the second last thing is the organizational culture and brand. For culture, we said that a good culture is the one that promotes those strong values. Value like innovation, value like professionalism, and a value like honesty and integrity. If you have dishonest people, they may steal from us, and the stealing is a cost to the organization. And boosting the reputation of an organization goes hand in hand with professionalism. When we treat our customers professionally and treat them with respect, that brings us reputation, which is the organizational brand. And lastly is HR analytics, because we are living in a data age where we make decisions based on real data, and not just real-time data. We use various tools to collect, analyze, interpret, and present data. For example, AI. So when we make data-driven decisions, then we are likely to improve on our revenues, reduce the costs, and enhance productivity. So that is an analysis of how HR, all the functions that we have mentioned, affect the financial outcomes of an organization. I want us to move to the last part, which is intellectual capital, so that I can open the forum for questions and comments, and we close the day. And this is intellectual capital. I've indicated and I explained it from the beginning of the part 3 of this presentation, that this refers to the intangible value that we derive from knowledge, experience, and expertise of our employees. And the value has been demonstrated through the financial impact, and which is the revenues we generate, the profits that we make, and the costs that we reduce. How do we ensure that this intellectual capital adds value? It is by recognizing our employees, nurturing them through training, through succession planning, and creating a conducive environment, and then leveraging these intangible qualities. By leveraging, we make sure that we use optimally the skills and the knowledge that people have to achieve a competitive advantage. Now I move to the specifics, that is elements of intellectual capital. And there are quite a number of them which I have highlighted. The first one is the human capital, which involves the skills, the knowledge, the experiences, and the abilities. So how do we nurture and how do we develop this? It is through recruitment, through training, and through development. In this way, we are likely to achieve organizational goals and objectives because by developing this human capital, we get to reduce the cost of operations, increase our revenues, and also increase our profits. Secondly is the structural capital. These are the systems that we use to store and share knowledge resources. And in most of our organizations, we call this knowledge reservoirs. What are the systems that we use to collect, store, and share knowledge? We may be having a knowledge management system or a learning resource management system, that is an LMS. With this structure, we are able to utilize and share knowledge in a way that is beneficial to the organization. Like I mentioned yesterday, after this training, it's expected that there are systems that will enable you to go back to your organizations and share what you have learned. It is a waste of resources if what you have learned cannot be shared in the organization. And they say that sharing is caring. So we take care of our employees by sharing this precious knowledge that we have acquired, and this can help us to improve our systems and processes. The other aspect is the social capital, the relationships that we keep within and outside the organization. For example, collaboration has to do with teamwork. Through teamwork, we are able to achieve synergy. And the synergy means that we are able to produce better results than people working alone. That is social capital, where we share our experiences, we support one another, and also gain from what other experiences people have outside the organization. So through this collaborative effort, organizations are able to acquire, utilize, share, and disseminate knowledge. The other aspect of intellectual capital is innovation and creativity. Earlier on in number 2, we talked about talent management, and we said that the best way of not the best way, but when we attract talent, we must attract those who are innovative and creative. People who are innovative generate new ideas or generate new products or develop new systems, which can either cut cost, improve operational efficiency, or generate profits for the organization. And that's where the impact comes in. Intellectual capital impact based on creativity and innovation. The other intellectual capital is leadership development. And this is part of the succession plan that we mentioned earlier. If we have people we have appropriately and adequately developed, we are not likely to suffer from succession crisis. And even those that succeed others have been properly developed so that, one, they are able to provide leadership within their departments, teams, or the whole organization. So as we audit this aspect, we look at the number of people we have adequately prepared to take over leadership positions. As we end, there is this other part, which is also important in intellectual capital. And this is what I called earlier on emotional intelligence. It is part of the intellectual capital, emotional intelligence. People who are emotionally intelligent are able to help others. And how do they help others? One, by counseling them. By extension, we are saying that counselors must be good managers of emotional intelligence. So people who have emotional intelligence like empathy, they can assist others. They have counseling skills, they can help others. And also in management of relationships. In organizations where relationships are toxic, people with emotional intelligence can help. That they are able to cultivate good relations using their emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence also may involve having soft skills, though I prefer separating these two. Soft skills and emotional intelligence are slightly different. But we are saying that emotionally intelligent people also have soft skills. Soft skills like time management, soft skills like communication, soft skills like empathy. So these are aspects that can help to develop people holistically. That apart from having the technical skills in HR, in finance, or in production, we could also have skills that cut across. That is emotional intelligence, which can also be used as an element of intellectual capital. So I have fairly covered all the three aspects that we started with in this module. And these three aspects were, one is the scope that we began, auditing HR strategies. The second one was talent management. And the first one, which we have just finished, is the financial measures and intellectual capital. So, ladies and gentlemen, I now request that you now ask your questions or make your comments so that we can officially close this session, and we wish each other good evening. The floor is yours. Any volunteer to start us off? Pamela, if you are there, you can ask your question or comment. Terry? Hello? Peter, if you are there, you can ask a question.
Sorry.
Sorry, go on.
Okay, this is not Peter, it is Constance. Just to
Constance,
say,
yes.
yes, just to say that the entire session from the first day up to where we are now has been quite insightful and so clearly articulated that that I am able to follow that which I have learned here, and I really hope that I shall be able to transfer this knowledge that I have learned in my workplace. So just to say thank you very much for that insightful session, and that definitely
Thank you very much.
personally I'll be looking out for you in areas where I may need support in this
Yes.
area. I hope that we can be able to share your contact with us maybe at the end of this session, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much. I will try my best to consult and probably give you an answer at the end of the session. Thank you very much for the compliment, and I'm happy that I've conducted this session in a professional and methodical manner. And thank you for that comment. Anybody else? Or maybe I can ask somebody to volunteer on behalf of the rest of the participants to give a vote of thanks if there is no question, so that we can close the session. Any volunteer? Okay, apparently we don't have a volunteer there. Allow me to say two things before we close. One, I want to thank you very much for your active participation during the whole process since Monday up to today. It has been a journey and it has been quite involving. Thank you for your sacrifice to be with us throughout this process. I want to believe that you have learned a lot and that you will transfer whatever you have learned to your places of work so that you can create a positive change in your organizations. Secondly, I want to announce that as SCHRP, we have several products that you can enroll and learn from. We have about 14 certifications, and you are always welcome. We always advertise them, and please be on the lookout when we advertise this so that you don't miss out on anything. Otherwise, on that note, I want to wish you all the best for the rest of the evening and weekend. And therefore, I want to officially say that the training that we started on Monday has officially ended. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, unless there's somebody who want to make a comment.
Mr. Odali, you can stop sharing now.
Yes, I can.
Yes, very well. Thank you very much, our participants. Kelly Saini, I have not seen you for a very long time. And Kone for being there throughout the session. And Nenje Mushifi, are you there?
I'm there, Banadan.
Yes, thank you. How is Nakuru?
Nakuru is fine.
Ah, wonderful.
You only come to Naivasha. You should be coming to Nakuru.
Yes, we are bringing something to Nakuru very soon. Actually,
okay.
that concern is very well noted. Lilian?
Okay.
Lilian?
Hey, jambo, Bwana Dan.
Jambo.
Hey, salamu mingi kutoka Kampala.
That is Lilian. Lilian has been supporter for many years. Thank you for showing up and participating every day. And I'm actually very impressed.
Asante.
Then there is CS. Then there is Tele Saini. You there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. The session was very insightful. I hope to attend the next one.
Very well. Thank you, Tele.
Thank you.
Tele has also been there with us for many years. Now, I want to make this announcement. That's why I've come online. That the 5 sessions since Monday to date, where we started with allow me to share this. You can see my share?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. We started with foundations of HR audit. This was the introductory part. Then on Tuesday, we had on exploring HR audit dimensions. Then we did on Wednesday, HR audit methods. Thursday, we covered auditing HR systems. Today, we were having the topic on auditing HR strategies and impact. Now, what this means is that you've been able to perfectly cover the 5 modules that form the certified human resource auditor. And each of these modules has been approved by IHLM for 1 CPD point. In case you would be interested to get your certificate or your CPD, log into our portal. Our portal is this one. When you go to home, you'll find your portal there. And for those who might have forgotten, it's very easy to interpret this. To log in, you enter your email address, like I would enter mine. The part for password is very simple. It says enter HR 2021. Do exactly that. Type HR 2021 in lower cases. And there you go, you log in. So if you are logged in, you'll find the courses, or rather the portal has been arranged in calendar format and on monthly basis. So we are in October. So and you'll find your courses from number 45 to number 49. And you'll be able to see the enroll button. Rather, you can see where the register button is. If you check the box, you're able to enroll for that course. You can check the other one, and the other one, and the other one. Then you'll be able to have for yourself the 5 modules. Why am I saying this? The 5 modules have been recorded, and you'll be able to access both the notes and the recording. So even if you missed, say, day 1 on some aspect, you'll be able to have all the recorded modules. For Kone, you'll be able to find again the modules under your certified human resource auditor certification. And always remember that the HR certifications are duly registered. If you go to our accreditations, you'll find the CHRA, that is the Certified Human Resource Auditor certification. And if you look at class number 35, it indicates Okay, it is registered under 3 classes. 16, that is for printed matter, letterheads and stationery. For those in consultancy and who may wish to go into consultancy at some time, you are eligible to use on your letterhead that you are certified HR auditor. Then again, you see number 35, certification of HR professionals. When we say advertising, if you are certified, you are eligible to use your to use the CHRA on your business card. And then number 41, education and the provision of training, like what you are doing today. And as Mr. Odari said, clearly said, we have 14 registered certification trademarks from CHRA all the way to CHRD. And when you get certified, you'll always find your name under the list of those who've been certified. And if someone was to check on your certificate, they'll show this is a valid certification for so and so. Feel free to talk to me on the number indicated there. That is 0722 300 245. And our email is always there, admin@achrp.org. So with those few remarks, I want to thank everybody for participating and wish you a very, very good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Den. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Mwalim. Good evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.